In 2008, we were introduced to the Marvel Cinematic Universe with the first installment in the somewhat successful franchise, Iron Man. With this came the introduction of Phil Coulson, an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. played by Clark Gregg, a character who would go on to appear in many more MCU films over the next few years, culminating in his final appearance, chronologically anyway, in 2012's The Avengers, or Avengers Assemble for us in the UK. After 4 years of build-up, the Avengers finally came together to take down Loki, god of mischief, and probably hair, but not before Loki claimed the life of Coulson, a loss that finally brought the Avengers together. Having become a fan favourite, it was a sad loss for the MCU to see Coulson go, so much so that the Coulson Lives movement was born, made up of fans desperate for Coulson to return to life somehow. I guess people listened. In July 2012, it was announced that Marvel Television and ABC had entered discussions about producing a live-action TV show set in the MCU. In August, Avengers director Joss Whedon announced his involvement in the development of the show. Soon after, news broke that a pilot for a show named S.H.I.E.L.D. had been ordered, written by Joss Whedon, Jed Whedon, and Marissa Tancherone. Joss would also direct the episode as well as act as an executive producer on it alongside Jed, Marissa, Jeffrey Bell, and Jeff Loeb. It was also confirmed Jed, Marissa, and Jeffrey would act as showrunners if the pilot was ordered to series. That October, at New York Comic Con, Joss Whedon, Kevin Feige, and Clark Gregg announced that Gregg would return to his role as Coulson in the pilot and would act as the series lead. At the end of the month, Disney legend Ming-Na Wen joined the cast as Melinda May. In November, Elizabeth Henstridge and Ian DeKuyster, fair warning, I will be gushing about these two a lot in future, were cast as Jemma Simmons and Leo Fitz respectively, with Brett Dalton joining the show as Grant Ward later in the month. Finally, Chloe Bennett rounded off the main cast in December after being cast as Skye. The pilot was shot between late January and early February 2013, and on April 6th of that year, ABC revealed the full title of the show, Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. On May 10th, ABC announced the show had been picked up for a full series. The pilot episode was screened to an ecstatic crowd at San Diego Comic-Con in July 2013, before the show officially premiered to the world on September 24th. The show's been airing ever since and will end its remarkable run in summer 2020 with its 7th and final season. It was the news confirming many of our suspicions that the 7th season would be the last that had me reflecting on my journey with the show. I loved the show completely, and knew I had to do reactions to them on my channel when season 5 came around, the first full season to start after I started YouTube, and it's proved to be a feat that has brought me so much joy and introduced me to so many incredible people. That's already one thing I hold dearly in my heart when it comes to S.H.I.E.L.D. To bridge the gap between season 6 and season 7, I knew I wanted to go back and rewatch the show from the beginning, to prepare myself for the emotional ending to come. It's going to destroy us, we know this. This show means the world to me for so many reasons, as I've discussed in my reactions, and will do so during specific episodes in future videos in this series. So when I sat down to start rewatching the show from the beginning, I suddenly felt the need to make a video about it, and thus, the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. guide was born. This series will, hopefully, go through the show, episode by episode, giving my thoughts and analysis on how the show, its themes, production and characters have changed over the years and become one of the greatest shows on television, despite so many people not giving it the chance. These videos will be better appreciated having already seen the show in its entirety thus far, as it will contain spoilers for episodes ahead of the one I'm covering. So, here goes nothing. Where it all began, the pilot. I remember enjoying what I saw upon it first airing, and honestly as a whole I still think season 1 is great. But oh boy, is there some incredible television to come where S.H.I.E.L.D. really hits its stride. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Season 1 still has a lot to love, despite the highs the show manages to reach in future. And with the pressure of tying into a success such as the MCU with a TV budget and make us fall in love with new characters who don't have superpowers, yet, I think for the most part it's a really fun ride. And introducing tons of new characters and setting up an entire season and beyond of story in 45 minutes can't be easy, so I tend to never treat pilot episodes too harshly. This script is already at nearly 1,000 words, so I really need to get on with it. Let's delve into Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s series premiere. In a voiceover, a woman alludes to the events of the Avengers, with a montage of clips from the film amongst shots of a busy New York. The voice states that no one can deny the existence of superheroes and life beyond Earth anymore, as we are introduced to Mike Peterson and his son Ace.
You know, you got a birthday coming up in a couple of months. Who's your favorite?
I'm okay.
I will buy you all the toys. All of them! Through their conversation, we see that Mike is currently jobless and the two are struggling to get by. After reminding Ace that
Routine.
the top floor of a nearby building explodes, Mike rushes in to help and, when alone in an alley, displays superhuman abilities as he climbs through an open window and saves a woman trapped inside. jumping out the window and landing on the floor with minimal effort. Several bystanders look on in shock, including a young woman who films the event and shows a clear interest in Mike and his powers. The voiceover continues, addressing an as-yet unknown listener about coming out of the shadows. In Paris, an undercover agent Grant Ward is informed that a movement known as the Rising Tide is continuing to stir up trouble for S.H.I.E.L.D. Not to be confused with the real-life Rising Tide movement against climate change. It caused issues when it was first aired. Ward acquires a target's prints to gain access to a vault in his hotel room where the artifact he's after is being stored. After securing it, he's caught out and fights his way out to safety, probably causing some serious brain damage in the process. Let's hope he doesn't make a habit of that, eh? A helicopter carries CGI Ward away as we cut to him being berated by Maria Hill, with Colby Smulders reprising her role from the Avengers. The show takes the chance to remind us what S.H.I.E.L.D. stands for, and what S.H.I.E.L.D.'s job is, which definitely won't be dramatically changed by the end of the season. Hill doesn't seem to appreciate Ward's jokes as they discuss life following the Battle of New York. At the mention of Coulson, Ward tells Hill that he's level 6, so therefore is aware Coulson was killed during the events of the Avengers. And then, Coulson lives. He emerges from the darkness and...
Sorry, that corner was really dark and I couldn't help myself. I think there's a bulb out.
Takes what may have been a cheesy entrance and makes it classic Coulson. A few seconds of the woman from earlier being a complete stalker later, and Coulson talks Ward through his recovery process. He explains that he only stopped breathing for 8 seconds and was back on duty after a slight recuperation break in Tahiti. Seems legit. Further discussions reveal that S.H.I.E.L.D. were the target of the voiceover at the start of the episode, and the Rising Tide's influence plus the presence of superhumans has led to Coulson putting a team together to deal with them. Ward instantly assumes the mission will be to...
cross them off. Wow. No?
That's dark, Ward. Maybe he has a dark side, huh? The mention of Ward's family history also leaves him looking uncomfortable. Wonder if that will go anywhere. He's also not happy about being part of a team. Maybe he's just not a people person. Right, Agent Hand? Dr. Stryton arrives, played by the late, great Ron Glass. If you haven't seen Firefly, please give it a shot. The ensemble cast feel is very similar to S.H.I.E.L.D. And reveals Fitz Simmons isn't cleared for combat. Wonder who Fitz Simmons is. I doubt whoever this one sole person is will become my favourite TV couple of all time, and 2 of my all-time favourite fictional characters. Definitely won't consume my heart and soul and very being. Stryton and Hill both make sure Coulson is coping well following his recovery, but he's adamant he's ready to be back at work. He clearly enjoyed his time in Tahiti though.
It's a magical place.
His online review for that hotel must have been glowing. When alone, Stryton and Hill make it clear that all is not right with Coulson's recovery, and there's more to it than Coulson even knows about. And, just like that, I'm desperate for answers. I fondly remember scouring the forums for theories on how Coulson came back from the dead, and, well, we'll talk about that when we get there. Mike watches news coverage about his heroic efforts when the mysterious woman from before sits down opposite him, introducing herself as Skye. Nice name. Can't wait for that to stick. They talk about Mike's powers and how S.H.I.E.L.D. will be looking for him. She offers to help him come up with a superhero identity and to fight against S.H.I.E.L.D. by coming out of the shadows. It was probably around this point that I realised that she was the one giving the voiceover at the start. She gives him some wise advice.
With great power comes a ton of weird crap.
That made me sad given recent news. As Mike leaves, Skye swipes his ID and the audience sees his name is Mike Peterson for the first time. We cut to a woman filing at a desk when Coulson appears next to her. Conversation reveals the woman's name is Melinda May, and she used to work in the field with Coulson, instantly rejecting whatever proposal he has for her. It's interesting to note how softly May speaks in this introductory scene, almost as if she's putting on the persona of a woman who actually enjoys her desk job. May doesn't want to go back to field duty, but Coulson insists she'd only need to pilot the bus. No combat, and making their own calls. A prospect that seems to win her round. Almost as if disobeying a direct order once had terrible consequences for her. The cold exterior is slightly melted by Coulson's lightheartedness, indicating a fondness between 2 old friends. For now. In a hangar, Ward approaches the bus. A plane. I have a huge sense of nostalgia for the bus, and it probably remains my favourite base of operations in the series. Ward walks further in and we hear some distant squabbling before we are introduced to...
Fitz Simmons.
Fitz.
Simmons. I'm engineering, she's biochem.
Did someone say instant favourites? I'm always drawn to the nerdier shy characters. Probably because I'm A, a nerd, and B, shy. And this is before the show even remembers to actually develop them a few episodes into the season. The fact that they're instantly introduced as if they're one person, lightly bickering, is a very interesting concept behind characters. I could spend a few good years gushing about these two, but I'll wait for the appropriate developments to come as these two, my god, these two. As they faff around Ward, it's clear that these two are meant to be the comic relief. Ha! Coulson enters with,
Her name was Lola.
and Fitz remarks to Ward,
How do you call that girl's name?
To see someone we now know was achingly shy about meeting new people try and form a bond with Ward so early on is so endearing to me. I'm sure their friendship will go from strength to strength. And as for Fitz using girl as an insult,
You screamed like a girl.
I am a girl.
S.H.I.E.L.D. of all shows will definitely go on to show him the error of his ways. Coulson and Ward talk about the mission as S.H.I.E.L.D. traces a Rising Tide broadcast. May is shown to have accepted Coulson's offer and Ward is gobsmacked to see her, calling her the cavalry. I'm sure that's nothing. I love that the show planted seeds like this so early on and let them simmer for over a season, if not more, before a great payoff. Skye is broadcasting to S.H.I.E.L.D. like the beginning of the episode when...
Hey, what up?
Man, I'd forgotten how often S.H.I.E.L.D. used to crack a joke. Now it's all... Skye's taken onto the bus for interrogation from Coulson and Ward, where upon introducing herself they question what her real name is, saying it surely can't be Skye. Interesting. Fitz Simmons and May arrive on the scene of the explosion to analyse what remains while Skye's questioning continues, as she toys with the idea that she planned on getting caught to see what S.H.I.E.L.D. is about. Whether or not this is true could make for an interesting debate. She talks about a mysterious Project Centipede, and it's clear Coulson and Ward don't know what that is. Coulson tries to talk Skye into helping them by arguing that while they may wish to contain Mike, others would want to exploit him. Meanwhile, Mike is shown on the phone to some sort of doctor talking about how well their product works, and how he should go public. The doctor on the other end shuts him down. That's the last evil doctor we'll see on the show, I'm sure. He sees a picture of himself and his wife and it angers him. Initially you may think she died, but a later scene reveals that she left Mike and Ace when things got rough. This definitely wouldn't have helped Mike's state of mind, and having had someone abandon him and his son by choice, it's no wonder the lengths he goes to ensure that that doesn't happen again. Leaving someone purposefully breaks the heart just as much, but in a different way. Simmons examines a crispy skeleton. It feels weird to call her Simmons, but it just feels more right in the early seasons as opposed to when I just later called her Jemma. Fitz is deeply disturbed by this in one of my favourite running gags of the early seasons. May tells him he needs to get his hands dirty in the field, but Fitz responds by introducing her to the dwarfs, named after the 7 dwarfs and an 8th one being called Snow. Not that Snow. I love the dwarves and was sad to see them basically disappear after a while, though one does pop up in the real deal and potentially code yellow, which I'll get to in about, 70 years? Meanwhile, Ward and Skye aren't getting along.
People keep secrets for a reason. Skye?
Well, just because you're reasonable and firm doesn't mean that you're not a evil, faceless government toolbag.
Well, nearly. They're the angel and the devil on Coulson's shoulders. Up to you to decide who's who, but I think we probably know. And the scene is very nearly shot to represent that, to the extent that I kind of wish they went there. Getting nowhere, Coulson and Ward turn to their last hope, truth serum. Meanwhile, Bashful the dwarf finds a surveillance cam amongst the wreckage, and Simmons' little "ah," as if to say well done Bashful, is beyond adorable. And with that, Fitz explains he may be able to retrieve images from before the explosion.
By luck, I mean unappreciated genius.
I loved innocent baby sassy Fitz. I'm so sorry the world beat you down. Simmons also discovers alien material amongst the rubble. Coulson and Ward present the serum to Skye, but Coulson instead uses it on Ward in a pretty hilarious and very Coulson twist in order to gain Skye's trust. It makes sense. Ward already has a sense of loyalty to Coulson because of his job, so he may as well try and get everyone else he can on his side. Coulson leaves Skye and Ward alone so Skye can question him. I love how Skye truly bursts to life in this scene, having already heard Ward admit he was attracted to him, playing that up just because she can. She gets some intel about him killing people and, of course, his beloved
Ramsey?
Given where the story goes, I'm not too sure if this joke lands on repeat viewings. Maybe Ward did have a nice relationship with his grandmother or was very good at believing a cover story. Either way, it's another interesting thing you can debate about what Ward was being truthful about, as his feelings towards people being debated comes up again near the end of the season. It might even be Ward recognising Skye's lying about her true self earlier that he finds enticing, knowing he's doing the same thing. Mike attempts to get his old job back, but his boss refuses, and we see Mike is starting to lose his cool, to put it lightly. This change happens just a bit too quickly for me, but I understand that it's more so the serum than Mike as a character. It's during some of these moments where Mike comes to realisations about things that the dialogue feels a bit clunky to me, as does the line in the previous sequence with Skye and Ward.
There are 2 ways we can do this.
Oh, it's one of them the easy way.
No.
No.
It landed for me when I first saw it, now not so much. I do like the foreshadowing with Mike here though, as he talks about being treated like a replacement part. Coulson and Skye talk and seem to have a better understanding of each other. Coulson's early activities showing Skye that he's slightly more relatable than the agent she probably had always imagined in her head. She's willing to help the team now, and when Fitz reveals his trouble over gaining much from the security footage they found, Skye suggests using some audio she had recorded to aid them. Just like that, she's found a place in the group. I think this could be the moment Coulson sees a place for her in his team. She's brought something that was missing from the group that they didn't even know they needed. In the hospital, Mike visits the woman he saved at the start of the episode. While she seems pleased to see him, the mood changes as soon as they're left alone when...
I don't know where to go, Doctor.
It's revealed she's the doctor Mike was on the phone to previously. She tells how the first patient she tested on prior to Mike became unstable and caused the explosion by bringing a bomb into the lab. It's also made clear that she's not the top dog, and there are people higher up working from the shadows.
It's a disaster.
No. It's an origin story.
See what I mean with the moments of realisation? Fitz is busy at work on salvaging some footage with help from Skye's audio, and we get the first glimpses of the early season crush Fitz had on her.
When you get back, I'll show you my thing. Thing. It's not, it's my hardware. My equipment. Let's hang on.
That bit makes me laugh every time. I also like the establishment of Fitz's insistence that there's a difference between magic and science when he boots up the footage, a viewpoint he has that is addressed in later seasons. The footage is restored and we discover that the patient didn't bring an explosion to the lab. He was the explosion. Simmons deduces that Project Centipede gave test subjects a concoction of all the known sources of superpowers. Gamma radiation from the Incredible Hulk, super serum from the first Avenger, and extremis from Iron Man 3 as examples. May has escorted Skye to her van to send the audio to Fitz when Mike attacks her and forces Skye to flee in the van along with him and Ace. Meanwhile, Fitzsimmons informed Coulson of two possible ways of stopping Mike since he is set to explode like the last patient: isolating him from innocent people or shooting him in the head. Coulson endearingly wants a third option that keeps Mike alive so Ace doesn't have to grow up without a father. Coulson's passion in this scene might be telling of his potential past without a father figure. Fitzsimmons are pressed for a time to come up with an idea, but Coulson snaps, demanding they find a way. It's strange to see him lose it at Fitzsimmons like this. At this point I think he hadn't learned yet that they always gave their work 110%, as he certainly gets less harsh with them in later seasons when they're stuck for ideas. Mike is forcing Skye to wipe his and Ace's records from all databases so they can disappear, with Skye stating she'd done such a thing before, hinting that there was a lot more to her and her past than we currently know. At this point I do have to say that the episode is moving at a rapid pace, and I think that really helps with this final act. There isn't a ton of character development for the main cast in the last part of the episode, but we still have a whole season to explore them more. Fitz is in a panic, but Simmons settles him by making him pretend he's in an exam. A lovely little exchange that shows how intrinsically well Simmons knows how Fitz's brain works. While typing away, Skye secretly hacks into S.H.I.E.L.D's network and gives them the location Mike has taken her to so they can rescue her. She's clever, this one. They should keep her. Skye, Mike and Ace are at Grand Central Station, making the most of the NYC locations while the budget still allows it, and Mike is losing control more by the minute. The team arrive and Mike breaks open the van in a rage, taking Skye and Ace inside with him. Skye cleverly gets Mike involved in a fight to give herself a chance to escape while S.H.I.E.L.D. agents take Ace to safety. The doctor from earlier is nearby and sends a sniper in to kill Mike before it's too late. Coulson and Ward realise a third party has gotten involved and split up, Coulson warning Ward to only shoot Mike if he has to. We then get our first iconic look at May in action as she seamlessly takes out the sniper. Same, Skye. Same. Then we get to the big scene as the episode builds to a conclusion as Coulson directly confronts Mike, trying to save his soul before it's too late. Mike gives a really nice speech here, the only realisation moment, as I've put it, to not come across as forced or cheesy to me. It holds a lot of weight, particularly when he talks about how he was told it was enough to be just a man, but then gods and giants appeared. Coulson tries to relate to Mike, just as he successfully related to Skye earlier with his slightly off-the-book serum escapade, by saying he's seen those giants up close.
And that privilege cost me nearly everything. But the good ones, the real deal...
Those words are coming back to haunt you, buddy. He reiterates that it matters who you are, and S.H.I.E.L.D. wants Mike to be the best he can be and a hero on S.H.I.E.L.D's behalf. Mike states he could have been a hero just as a bullet smacks into his head. He falls. Cue the slow motion that maybe goes on a little bit too long. Coulson looks up to see Ward fired the shot in what would be brilliantly paralleled in Season 3's closure. However, the bullet came from the night-night gun introduced by Fitzsimmons in their first scene, and Mike is sedated but alive. We get a shot of each of the team members one by one as the jigsaw fits. Fits. Together. Ace is put in a new home with the promise that his dad will come back for him soon, potentially setting up a longer story arc for Mike and his son. Though even if we never saw them again, I'd have been happy with how things turned out, but we can talk about that another time. Coulson and Skye talk and it's revealed Skye's been invited to join the team. The masterminds behind Centipede are still out there, setting up future episodes, and it makes sense that the one who knows the most about it out of the team would join them. As they get inside Lola, not in a dirty way, Grant calls Coulson with a new mission, to identify possible 084. We don't know exactly what that means, but Coulson's reaction is enough to excite me about the prospect, setting up the next episode. I quite like this approach for the series premiere. It's easier to try and get new audiences hooked week by week than trying to get them excited for another 21 episodes they know nothing about. Little steps count. As a wise woman will once say, the steps you make don't need to be big, they just need to take you in the right direction. And as the pilot ends with Lola turning into a hovercraft and soaring off, a working model of a prototype seen in the first Avenger, S.H.I.E.L.D is certainly going in the right direction. Also, shout out to the best credit of the episode, Angry Man. So, there we have it. Turns out I can take weeks to write a 3,000 word essay for university, but I just wrote nearly 5,000 about the pilot episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D in one sitting. It took hours, but I hope I got the passion across. Is pilot the best, pilot I've ever seen? No. Is it the worst? Also no. The plot is fairly simple, but with so much to introduce, it's the only logical thing to do. While we still don't know a great deal about some of our main cast yet, we still got some nice character moments, particularly with Mike's final speech. Plus, it's always a thrill to see Phil Coulson back in action, and have Maria Hill turn up. S.H.I.E.L.D is yet to find its stride, with many saying that won't happen for another 15 or 16 episodes if not more. But I have a soft spot for early season 1. It has some great moments and humour, it allows us to fall in love with the characters, episode 6 remains one of my absolute favourites, we'll get there, and after knowing everything they've all been put through, you may get a lot of joy out of watching the good old days where they weren't all getting traumatised every week. I'm looking forward to rediscovering these early episodes with you and eventually analysing some of the greatest episodes of television I've ever seen. But it's about the journey, isn't it? And S.H.I.E.L.D's journey started with a fairly solid and sometimes very effective opening chapter. I'm liking the feel of the characters. The mysteries behind who Skye is and Coulson's return from the dead leave me interested about the season as a whole, while the end scene makes me really want to tune in and see what an 084 is next time. It's a harmless 45 minutes, and I think that's all it needs to be. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you'll continue to relive Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D with me as we anxiously await Season 7. Until next time.